Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So hopefully I'm familiar to a lot of you. My name's Nikki Kimball. I'm one of the educational consultants on the Just2easy team. And today's session is going to be all about using Just2easy to make seasonal resources. So I have got a nice fun session planned for you today. Hopefully you can take these away and start using them straight away with your kids. So it is a 45-minute session. So I'm hoping to be wrapped up by 4:15. Questions, as always, can be asked via the chat. I've got Mary in the background, who's my colleague, the other educational consultant, who will be able to answer the majority of your questions, I'm sure. Anything that she can't answer, we will cover at the end. The session is being recorded and will be made available through YouTube, hopefully by the end of this evening, if not first thing in the morning. Now, in terms of what we're going to cover, I'm going to showcase a few Christmas resources that we have available within the resource library to start with, because a lot of those are ready to use, ready to set with your children straight away. And then we really are going to focus on creating resources using the JIT package. So part of that, I'm going to look at JIT Paint. So I'm just going to showcase how to make a very simple picture in JIT Paint. Then we're going to get a bit more complex. We're going to look at creating stamps. And as part of that, I'm going to show you how you can use your children's pictures to create stamps so they can add themselves into their pictures. And then I'll show you how to add those stamps into a picture, and I'll also show you how to add those stamps into an animation and create animations with your students. I'm also going to show you how to create resources using J2E5. So we're going to look at Christmas jigsaws and Christmas cards using clip art in J2E5. And then I'm going to end up the session with using J2PDF to import worksheets that you might already have ready to hand. So as part of that, we're going to look at a Christmas themed writing frame. I think I've changed that actually. I think I'm going to do a Christmas themed crossword. I think I've put in. We'll find out. Be a surprise to me as much as anybody else by the sounds of things. So let's crack on, shall we? So the first thing I'm going to showcase are our library resources. So you may or may not be aware of our library. This is a library resources that we have. They are teacher-made content. There's about 1,600 resources in there now, and we're actually showcasing a Christmas collection at the moment. So these are a few of the resources that we have available, but just to show you, on our Launchpad, there's also on your ribbon, there is the Christmas activities link there, and there's also the link here, and they will both take you to the library. So these are some of the resources that we have. We do have an advent calendar. Now this is quite nice, and I actually added a Key Stage 2 version last week, so that is available to use as well. This one is the Key Stage 1 or the easier version. So if you just want a few fun activities, I would use this one. If you are working with Key Stage 2 and you really want to challenge them a little bit, use the Key Stage 2 version. I've added things like some coding in there, some database and branching databases, all sorts of extending activities for your students. So this one is your Christmas Advent Calendar. You open up, it's built in J2E5, and they open the door. And by that, they click on the activity of the day. So for example, let's look for, what's the date today? Number 4. So we'll click on number 4, and that will take you to a relevant activity. So this is number bonds to 100 using our Santa number bonds. So that is one activity you could use. We've also got our Christmas jumper, design your own Christmas jumper. So you open it up, we've got our blank template. Your students have also got an example to look at. This is made in JIT 5, so JIT Paint. So you can use the fill tool, for example, they can use the clip art, and they can start designing their Christmas jumper. They can draw on it as well. Some nice zigzags there. So there we go. And then they would save that, and that would save a copy into their My Files. Now, if you do have a resource that you like, that you want to use with your students, they can't actually access any of the resource libraries unless they are shared with them. So you're safe in the knowledge that your students will only access content that's been specifically selected by a teacher for them to access. So for this purpose, you would click Share. You would select the class. So I'll just deselect and reselect. So there we go. Class 1 is my class. And then I click OK. and that will now share with your students. Now I normally do this in advance, but I haven't logged in as my student yet. So let me just log in as my demo student. There we go. So now I'm logged in. This is my student account. So she would go to the resource library. And there we go. There is that Christmas jumper activity that I have selected as a teacher for her to access. She would click that, complete that, save it, and she would save a copy into her My Files. So you can always access that through the pupil files area. So that is how you would share a resource. You've also got the option to set it as homework. So that will pre-populate that. So if I click homework, that pre-populates my homework task. And then all I need to do is just, again, add a class. So I can select my class, click OK. I can faff around with things like the start date and the due date, and then that will create a homework task for my students. So they would find that homework task in J2 homework. So that's another option for you. Other resources that we've got, so this was made in Jit Paint. We've also got our Create Your Own Christmas Wreath. So this is a draggable resource. Again, we've got some examples there. Now this one I've done slightly differently because I made this one in that I've actually added a video there explaining to you how you can set that as a Key Stage 1 activity, how you can extend it slightly for your Key Stage 2 children, and also kind of how it works. But just to give you an idea, this is the template. And these are draggable images. So your students, I'm just going to do a certain section of this wreath. They would drag the foliage. Now, little tip, and I have added it here. Start with the foliage first. So we'll bulk up the foliage on this section of the wreath and then add your decorations. So we can add things like the bows on top and the baubles and the cinnamon sticks. And let's add a bit of orange there. And there we go. And then again, this is built in J2E5. So for your younger students, you might need to support them with this, but they would then go to edit and they click that floppy disk there to save a copy into their My Files. So that's a nice Christmas activity to keep your students busy if you wanted to. And then this one, very similar. This is our Christmas Decorate Your Own Christmas Tree resource. So this is probably more appropriate for your younger students. You could have this up on the board, for example, and they just drag these decorations onto the Christmas tree. They can have their lights zigzagging. They can drag their baubles and their candy canes. And they've also got a star that they can pop at the top. And there we go. So those are pre-made, ready to go resources, ready to use with your students. And again, this is built in J2E5. So you click edit and then click save, and that will save a copy into their My Files as long as they are logged in. So those are just some activities you might want to try. Right, now if you want to create resources from scratch, we're going to look at Jit Paint to start with and creating simple pictures. Now I've included these. We've had these as a submission for our competition, which I will offer a little reminder about later. We are running a Christmas image competition that we would love to have some submissions for, and these are made from pupils from Ballywalter Primary School in Northern Ireland, and these are made using Jit Paint. Okay, so they've got their background, and they've also hand drawn some activities. I love this one. Got Santa in his giant truck. Fantastic. And this one, they've drawn that background and added in some clip art. So this was made using Jit Paint. So Jit is here, lovely yellow tile. It is our infant toolkit. Now this is actually 8 tools within it. We're going to look at Paint and Animate today. So Paint is here. It's our lovely blue tab, and the surround of the page screen will change colour. Now your students can draw their own backgrounds. There is a blank template there. But if I scroll down here, you've also got the Christmas backgrounds here. Now, if any of you are Key Stage 2 staff or you want to extend your students slightly, you do also have the Pictures tab here. Students can add in their own images if they've drawn a background, or they have got, if I just zoom in, this little globe button here, and that allows us to do a image search. So for example, let's look for North Pole and see what comes up. There we go. So we've got a nice ice scene. We've got the lovely northern lights there. So you could add that as a background instead if you wanted to. But I am going to stick with one of these. Let's go for the nativity actually. So I'm going to click nativity. That's added as my background. And you'll have your clip art here on the left hand side. Now, depending on which background will determine which clip art library shows. So the nativity clip art is linked to the nativity background, funnily enough. So we can click on this and we can lay the baby Jesus, there we go, into the barn. And I can use my left and right arrows. I can make Joseph a little bit smaller and click, and that will lay him on wherever I want him on that page. Now, if your students go wrong, they can use the undo button. That will take that away. Equally, if we lay that on the background, if we want to remove it at a later date, or a later time, should I say, the erase button will also work. So you can erase that character. Now, what's nice is it will erase the character, but not the background. So you're not going to end up with a nice white splodge there in the middle of the screen. So let's add Joseph back in again. And let's use our arrows. Let's find Mary. There she is. I can flip her around so she's looking the other way by using this button here. I can also rotate her. I can make her bigger or smaller. And I've also got the reset button there on the left hand side. So that will reset that. So let's flip her around and add her over here. Other things that I can do, I've got my 11 preset colours. I've got my paintbrush and my fill tool. So I can fill things in. So let's make this sand down here a little brighter. There we go, nice bright yellow. You've also got your 3D texture tool along the left hand side. So I just zoom in a little bit. Got a little roller tool. And I can use different 3D textures. So for example, let's add some wood bark to our palm trees. Oh, use my undo tool. There we go. We can make those look like they've got, oh, that's annoying. So I can't fill that in on the side there. But there are lots of different 3D textures that you can use. Some of them more appropriate than others to use in this particular background. Okay, and I'm just going to scroll through. There we go. There's the angel. We can add. So I click on the angel and I can layer that onto my picture. Now, once your students are done, they rename their paint at the top. So we could have nativity. I'm going to give it a number, just so I'm sure I've saved that before as nativity. And they click that floppy disk on the left-hand side, and that's going to save a copy into their My Files. The other thing that we can do is we can use this button here. I'm just going to zoom in on the top right. That is our save as image. So that will just save the picture on its own. So if we use that left hand button here, that saves the whole paint package, so we can come back and edit it at a later date. But if you are completely finished with that picture, if you press that, that will save that as an image into your My Files. So that then will just print out as that image. And you can use that image in other tools, which I am going to show you how to do a little later. So that is how we create a very simple image in JIT Paint. Now, we're going to get a little bit more complex, and we're going to create a stamp. Now, I used to love doing this with my classes, and we would get them to take a photograph of each other and to use them as a stamp, so we can cut out that image of that child and add that into different pictures. Now, you can also do this with hand-drawn images. I'm going to show you how to do it with a photo. There is a video on how to do this on YouTube. So if you do find I go a little bit fast, there is a little 2-minute video that will go step by step that will take you through creating a stamp. Okay, so we're going to do this in JIT Paint. And we're going to use something called a transparent background, which is this funny checkered background. And anything we add onto that and we sort of erase and take away will then save as a sort of outlined stamp with no background. So we're going to choose the transparent background. We're going to add in a photo. so preferably made with a blank background. And then we're going to remove the background. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to add in that photo. Now, if I was to do this with a class, I would probably have a lesson where they take photographs of each other. So it's a great opportunity for teaching them how to take good photos. This works best if the child is against a blank background. So that just means if you can get them up against a white wall, if you've got a green screen, if you could put that up in school and have them taking photographs against the green screen, that works really well as well. Even if you have them up against your class whiteboard, that will work as well. Okay, so blank background will make this activity much easier for the students in the long run. So what they can do is they can use the camera app if they want to, and that will then save that image into their My Files. Alternatively, you could take all these photos on a camera and import them into their My Files or your My Files. So I don't have any children to my disposal, unfortunately, so I have got this image of a student I have downloaded off good old Google. So I'm just going to drag this. So this could be your heart, this could be your camera external, and you've plugged it in. So I'm just going to drag that into my Files. And there we go. So I now have that student image. There we go. There she is, ready to use in JIT Paint now. Okay. So as long as you have that image in your My Files, you're ready to go. And I'm going to do this from scratch. So I'm going to open up my JIT. I'm going to open up Paint. And then I'm going to scroll right down to the bottom where I've got my transparent background. You've probably never noticed it before, but it is there. So there's our transparent background. Then I need to add in that photograph that I've just added into my File. So that photograph of the child. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to click on my clip art name. And I'm going to click this button here. So I'm going to zoom in. So this is your My Files area. So I'm going to click on my Files. And there she is, because I've just added her. I'm going to click, and that's going to add that as an image ready to stamp on my page. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make her as big as possible, just because that will make the editing process a lot easier for your students. If they make it as big as possible, there we go. And then they're going to stamp it on the screen wherever they want. There we go. And then just to sort of stop, so I get rid of this sort of floating image. If I click on my paintbrush, that now will let me start editing that photo. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of this background. So there's two ways of doing this, and it really depends on how much time you've got, very much what device you're using as well, and whether you have got a blank background or not. And this is why I said it's easier if you have a blank background. If you do have a blank background, what you can do is you click the erase button, which is this one here, and we use our fill tool. I'm just going to reset this so it's, there we go. I use my fill tool and my eraser. Now I can click on that blank background, and it's just going to remove as much of it as possible. Okay. Now it might miss some bits, so you might need to go over these bits here, but that will take all that background away. Now I'm just going to go undo. If it isn't a blank background, what you will need to do is you'll need to get your kids to use the paintbrush and to kind of outline and sort of drag that all around that outline. And you can see why I've recommended that you use a blank background, because it will make it a lot easier. This is much easier if you're using things like iPads, touchscreen devices, because they can use their finger instead of having to drag the mouse. But yeah, so those are your two options. But I'm just going to use my fill tool, and I'm going to remove that background. There we go. So there is our child. Now, as I said, you can also use this with hand drawn. So you can add a transparent background and just draw onto the screen. Okay. So once you've done that, and that, as I said, can be a lesson in itself, a lesson in length in trying to get that stamp ready and done. Once they're done, they're going to press this button on the left here, out these two buttons. Okay, so we've got this button, probably haven't noticed it before. It's called Save as Stamp. And I'm going to click that. Now, a little caveat, what it will do when you save a stamp is it will remove anything that is white in colour, so bright white. So this usually works best if your students maybe have their jumpers on, especially if they're wearing white shirts. So just bear that in mind when you're setting this activity up. The other thing that we can do is we can add on to this photo. So for example, maybe I want a Santa hat. So I'm going to use my Google search. And I'm going to add that on top. So let's go for this one. Make this a little bit smaller again. I'm just going to add that on top of her head. There we go. So nice festive hat. And again, I'm going to save as stamp. So that now will save as a stamp. So you're probably wondering where your stamps are. If I click on this name here, my clip art, you'll notice this My Stamps area. So if I click My Stamps, you'll see there she is. If I zoom in, there she is with her hat ready to use. Okay, so that is how you would create a stamp. I know that is a whistle-stop tour and you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, that was so fast. But there is a video to refer to on YouTube that runs through how to make a stamp. And I think they do a teddy bear activity. So that is just an idea for you to use. And it then means that your students can feature on their Christmas images that they create. Okay. So I'm going to show you now how to add this onto a Christmas picture in JIT. So I'm just going to go back into JIT. I'm in JIT Paint. I'm going to create a new one. So just to reflect back on what we looked at earlier, we're going to add in a Christmas background. I'll just click OK, that's fine. And I'm going to add in some Christmas images. I'm just going to do this very quickly. So let's add in Christmas trees, make my Christmas tree a bit bigger. Let's add Santa. And then we're going to add in our student or our stamp that we've just created. So we're going to go to our My Stamps area. We're going to click on her. There she is. I could make her a little bit bigger if I wanted to. And I can just add her onto her Christmas image. So this would be a fantastic activity if you're getting students to create their own Christmas cards, for example. You've also in Paint got the option, you might not have noticed, if I click and open up my clip art libraries, we've also got the speech bubbles function and we've also got the text function. So for example, let's give her a speech bubble, a nice big speech bubble. Let's make this big. And you could say, Merry Christmas from, I'm going to use my daughter's name, Lottie. Would help if I could spell from. There we go, from Lottie. And we could have her announcing her Merry Christmas. Okay, so there we go. And then you would rename that as we looked at earlier. So I'm really struggling with spelling Christmas at the moment. Sad, really, isn't it? Christmas from Lottie, for example. And you would hit save. That's going to save as that paint package. If you want to just save the image, remember you've got that top right hand corner, you've got that save as image button. So we can click that and that will save as that flat image. So that is an option for you. Okay, so that is how you can add in your students into their own Christmas picture. Right. I'm also going to add her into her own animation. So we're going to have a quick look at how we can create simple animations using JIT Animate. So this is very similar to JIT Paint. It's a great stepping stone to extend those skills because a lot of the skills are very similar in JIT Paint and Animate. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in a background. We're going to add in our character. So we're going to add in our student. And we're going to animate each frame. So I'm going to give you a very simple example of an animation. And we're actually going to do this where it is snowing. And I might show you how to make Santa travel across the moon as well. Okay, so JIT Animate, again, it's part of our JIT package. It is this lovely pink tab here. So we've got a pink surround. And again, it opens up the same as JIT Paint. So you've got that continuity, that consistency of interface. And again, the same as we did with paint, we're going to choose our background. And as you scroll down, you'll have your Christmas backgrounds. You've got Nativity and the Christmas one. We've also got things like Halloween when you need it next year, Coronation. We've got some ocean. We've even got an iceberg one. So whichever one you prefer. I'm going to use the Christmas one again. And there we go. Now, the first thing I tend to do with animate is edit the background. So if you haven't done animation before, it's probably my favorite thing to teach. The kids love animating. It is a stop frame animation. So you'll notice you have your frames. So these are the pictures. We've got 5 frames along the bottom ready to go. We've also got this background button and a play button. So the first thing I want to do is I want to edit my background because I want to add in my characters that don't move. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to click on my background and you'll know that you are editing your background because that blue square I'm just going to zoom in so you can see that blue square will be around that background box. Okay, so this allows you to add anything to the background that you don't want to move. So we're going to add our student and maybe a couple of other characters. So to do that, I'm going to click on where it says Christmas, and there in my stamps, there is my student. Might make her a little bit smaller. There we go. So we'll add her on the left there and click, and that's going to stamp her on the background. So she won't be able to move now. Okay, so these are only characters that you don't want moving through your animation. Then I'm going to go back. So I've got this arrow here along the left because I want to go into my Christmas clip art. And let's choose a Christmas tree, for example. Let's make the Christmas tree a bit bigger. I can add that there. And I can use my arrows on the right and the left to scroll through that Christmas clip art. So I might add Santa over there. Let's add in, he's got a sleigh somewhere. There it is. Let's add his sleigh and let's add in a reindeer. There we go. Okay, so we've got our characters that we don't want to move. So now I want to make it snow. Okay, so the snow obviously is going to be moving. So what I need to do is I click on my first frame, and I'll know that I've clicked on my first frame because it'll have these 3 buttons appear and this blue box. So let me just zoom in just so you can see. So now we are editing that first frame. Okay. So with animation, the pro tip is that you want the movements to be as small as possible. But this first bit of this activity is really a great way of introducing animation if you are brand new to animation, because we're going to make this snow fall. And the reason it's so good is because you don't have to worry about how small the movements are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my white paint tool, and I'm just going to make my paintbrush much smaller. There we go, that's about right. And then we're just going to dot in the sky. So I'm just going to click and dot where I want my snow to be. So there we go. So about 10, 15 maybe snowflakes. Okay, you can do this with snowflakes because there is some snowflakes within the library. So you can, within the clip art library, so you could use that instead. And then we're going to click on the second frame and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to click and we're going to add in our snowflakes. And you do the same thing. You're going to click on the third frame and you're going to try and layer these snowflakes. And then fourth frame, do the same thing. You're going to try and lay the snow where it hasn't been before, so where the sort of grey snowflakes are. And then the fifth frame. And there we go. Okay. And you could keep going. So to add another frame, you can press that green plus. That will add another frame and you can add some more snowflakes. So let's just quickly, there we go. Add some more snowflakes. So now I can play back my animation. So I've got my play button here. And then we've got our lovely Christmassy snowing scene. So that is a very simple way of introducing animation to your students. If you are working with students that are a little bit older, or maybe you've done animation before, and you want to know how to make a character move across the screen as opposed to these kind of randomized snowflakes, what we can do is we can add a character. So what I'm going to do, now you can do this with any character, you know, in your Christmas clip art or your nativity scene. You could have the shepherds coming in or the angel moving down, for example. But I'm actually going to look for a Santa flying across the sky. Now I haven't created my background very well because Santa's here, but we'll just ignore that. So I'm going to look for a flying Santa in my web search. So let's look for flying Santa. And there we go. Let's go for, I'm going to try this one. Now that one hasn't got a blank background, so I haven't selected that very well. Nope, let's try again. Let's try this one. It's not doing anything now. All right, let's Santa. Let's flip those words. I don't know why it works, but sometimes it does. And hit enter. Right, there we go. Okay, so I've got, that's why it's important it doesn't have a white box around it, because we want that transparent background. And let's make him a bit smaller. And what we want is him flying across the moon like this. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to click on our first frame and we're going to click where we want him. So there we go. Now we go to our second frame. Now this is slightly different. When you want something moving, you'll notice we've got this ghost Santa here. Now that is called onion skinning, for those of you that haven't done animation before. That just tells you where the character was in the previous frame. And what you want to do is you want to layer that flying Santa just slightly to the side and then click and lay it so that it's moved ever so slightly. And then you're going to repeat that process. You're going to click on your next frame, move him slightly to the side, click on the next frame, slightly to the side, click on the next frame, slightly to the side. And then when you get to your last frame, to carry on moving, you're going to press that green plus, and that's going to add another frame. So green plus, another frame, green plus, another frame. So now when I play my animation, we've got our lovely Santa flying across the sky. And obviously you will need to do your snowflakes. So that is an idea of something that you could do. A nice seasonal animation. And because this is built in JIT, you would save in exactly the same way. You would click that save button and that will save that editable copy into their My Files. Now this, I would recommend probably a minimum of 2, maybe 3 lessons to get a really effective animation done. And the way that you can make it look really good is to make those movements as small as possible between the frames, and that will look really effective. When they have finished completely, you've got this, I'm going to zoom in again, this save as GIF. So I'm going to click that. That will stitch those frames together and create a little animation. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it looks like in your My Files. So I'm in my My Files. In fact, if I open up my My Files, here we go. So your My Files is here. That's where all your content is saved to. So this is the difference. So if I click this one, this is the animate. It then opens up in Animate, and I can play from there. Fantastic. But it also means you can edit it further. Okay. This is the export to GIF, and this is how it looks different. So there you go. You can see there's our animation as a little, it is technically a picture format, but it's a video. And that is their animation. Now, ways that we can potentially send this home. So maybe this was a nice animation that you're making for parents to see at home if you're not using the parent portal. What we can do is we can hover over this piece of work. We've got the green circle. If I click that, you've got this option for QR code. So let me just zoom in a little bit. QR code. So if I click that, that's going to generate a QR code, and that links directly to that piece of work. So it doesn't link to their My Files, links directly to that piece of work. So if I leave it as it is at the moment, you could send that home. Parents can, excuse me, I've got a cat on my windowsill about to jump on my lap. They would need a J2E, a Just2easy account to scan this to view that file. But what we can do, we can tick this box that says publish. It doesn't publish it anywhere. If I tick that, I can now, I've got my phone, if I open up my camera app on my phone, if I scan that, just to show you how this works, and it will open up that lovely little animation there. So you could send that home as a kind of digital Christmas card, for example. And it means parents can scan that without having to log into a Just2easy account. So there you go. So that's personally what I'd probably do with my class if I was to be creating something to send home. But it's personal preference, isn't it? So that is how you can create a QR code linked to a digital piece of work as well. And there is a video on YouTube about how to do that. Now, this is going to be very quick, but we've also got the option to use clip art in J2E5. Okay, and that can be done if we open up J2E5. So this is J2E5 here. And this is actually something I only learnt last week. And I should have known this. But you can use the clip art in J2E5, the same as we just have in JIT Paint. So to do that, we can open up our picture file at the top. So these are the picture tools. And again, if I zoom in here, you've got this clip art library tool, or the 3 drawers, as Mary calls it. And that is now going to open up into your clip art. So this includes all of the clip art that you have available in JIT Paint and JIT Animate. So for example, if we were looking for the nativity, we can search nativity. It's going to bring up all your clip art. But also if we scroll to the bottom, it also brings up the background. So we can drag these onto our screen so we can resize that background. So we can create an image in J2E5. If I open up that clip art again, it's saved that keyword to open up the drawers. And I can drag any of these images onto that picture. Now, what I would recommend is that you drag all the images first and then resize them all at the same time. So let's add in our shepherd, for example. So now I can click on any of these images, use these blue boxes and resize my images. Let's make our camel much bigger. There we go. And we can move those around. So there we go. So there is an activity that you can do with your students. That can be printed as well. So we've got our print function here at the top. And there we go. So you could print that out as a card if you wanted to. And you've got the save function there. So that would save into your My Files. I'm very behind, even by my standards, I'm very behind in timing wise. I'm sorry, I may run over a little bit. But if you do need to pop off at 4:15, I'm very understanding about these things. So that is how you can use clip art in J2E5. We can also make jigsaws in J2E5. I love this activity. It's a great activity maybe if you want something to have, just a fun activity for your students to use. There is one preset already in the library. It is the Christmas jigsaw. But you can turn any image into a jigsaw. So that is using J2E5. So again, I'm going to open up a new so I'm in J2E5. I'm going to open up a new J2E5. I'm going to delete that. There we go. Now I have already saved my image that I created earlier in JIT Paint. And if I open up my pictures tab here, there it is. No, that is my GIF. It was this one. So I can drag this image. Now this is the difference between saving it using the floppy disk or saving it as the save as image option, because I saved it as an image, I can use that in J2E5. So that is why you would do that. Okay. And there we go. So I can click on that image. I've added it onto my page. If I click onto that picture, you'll notice I've got this convert to jigsaw option on the right hand side here. So if I click that, That then changes that whole image into a jigsaw. Once I've converted it to a jigsaw, I can change things like my pieces, so I can make it more complicated jigsaw. So let's go 5 by 5, 5 by 4. I've also got things like I can add in a scatter button. So that's added that there. I can add in a solve button, and I can add in a hint button. And then if I go to the view mode, I can click scatter. I've got my hint underneath, and my students can drag these pieces. I always do this. I need to make it a much less complicated jigsaw. But these will fit together. So if I click these together, you'll see that it's clicked. And let's add her there. And then we've got our solve and our scatter button. So if I solve that, it will fit it all together for me very nicely. So there you go. That is how you would create a Christmas jigsaw for your students. And obviously they could come up to the board and do that, or you do have the option to save it and you can share that with your students. Right, J2 PDF. Adding in existing worksheets. Now I'm sure you have a whole folder somewhere of PDF. So these traditionally are things that you would have, you know, the master copy for, and you go and photocopy it in the morning and they complete it at their desks. So this is just a way that we can make these digital. Okay, so just to give you an example, I've got this one here. It is a Christmas. I'm going to double click and open it. Maybe I'm not. I need to close this dialog box apparently. It's not opening at all. This could be interesting then. So I think it's a Christmas crossword. We'll find out. So I want to add it into J2 PDF. So I've got that on my hard drive. And I'm going to add it into my files. So I've got my hard drive open. I'm just going to drag this Christmas PDF here into my files. And here we go. Here's my PDF. Now, the problem with, there we go, Christmas crossword, who knew? The problem with PDFs are that they're kind of static and you can't really do anything with it. So you would need to print this out for them to complete it, unless you use J2 PDF. So now I've added that into my files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up J2 PDF. Now you can also just drag this PDF onto this Dropbox as well, and that will do the same function. Or if you've already got it saved in your My Files, you can click Open PDF. And there's my Christmas PDF. And I click on it and then click Add. And that now has stitched that PDF onto a J2E5 file, so I can click anywhere and start typing. Now this is actually a 2-page. So if I scroll on to the next page, they've actually got the answers there. So it might be that I don't want them to have the answers. So what I can do is I can edit that PDF. So if I open up my multi-page tool here, I've got both my pages and I want to delete this second page so they can't cheat. So what I can do, I've got this little arrow here. If I zoom in, I can use that drop down menu and you can see I've got delete, insert, clone, rename. So I'm just going to delete that page and it will give you a little warning. So do I want to delete? Yes. So there we go. I can add things onto this page. I could add a word list if I wanted to. So I've got my word lists there. I've also got the option to record sound. So maybe you want to give them some instructions. You could record a sound bite. You could add more pictures in there, shapes. You could add some more text. So we can click anywhere and start typing. So then to share that with my students, I just click save. So let's put in Christmas crossword, for example. Click save. And I can share that with my students. Now to do that, I can click here, the little 2 people. And I've got this drop down menu here. So I'm going to use this double arrows. I'm just going to zoom in just so you can see this little double arrow here. And it'll bring up your options so you could share with your class. You've got your teaching classes, users, so individual users, or That's all of the classes that you have in school. So let's set that for class 1, for example. And I can set for multiple classes. So let's go class 2 as well. And they will have access to that. So for your students to access that particular resource, they then open up their Just2easy account and they go to, I can't see it right now. There it is, shared files. They tick list files. And I don't know why it doesn't share with her. Let's try that again. My class. Shared files. There it is. And there she goes. She can click edit and she can click anywhere. So let's, I'm trying to think of something. Number 19. I can't even see number 19. There we go. Gifts, maybe. So GIFT. And she can save that, and that will save into her My Files. So you as a teacher, so I'm in my teacher account again. If I open up my pupil files, if I go to class 1, if I go to Lottie, there is that Christmas crossword, and there are her answers so far. Okay. So, I'm sorry, I'm running over. Just a few announcements. As always, we are running our live lesson. So we do this every month. That's usually the 3rd Tuesday of the month. It's the 2nd Tuesday of this month because I know exactly how busy it is in school at this time of year. Now, this live lesson is geared towards reception and year 1, which is P1, P2 for our Northern Irish and Scottish teachers. I might have overcommitted myself here with teaching reception. It's been a while. The idea is you join the lesson and I will teach your class for you. So I will go over how to add in a background and how to add in clip art and how to save their file. So it's a very simple lesson. If you are in a different year group and you want to follow along, you're more than welcome. So that is on YouTube within our live lessons tab. They are recorded, so you can stream that on demand once it is recorded. So just to show you, this is our YouTube channel. It is under the live lessons tab, and you can click here and it will stream live at 10:45 a week tomorrow. So that is the live lesson. We're also running a competition. So if you are creating content, so we have said best Christmas pictures, but we will accept animations as well. Tag us on social media, or you can send us your submissions to edteam@j2e.com. We've had some submissions today. We're very pleased. And the closing date is the 15th of December. So that we will be giving prizes for the best 3 creations. So you can use whichever software it is that you want to use. Lastly, if you want to get in touch with us, edteam@j2e.com. You can email us. We are on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter. So those are our handles. And also that is our YouTube channel where we have a whole host of content. As I said, there's lots of videos. If I just go back. So some of the videos that you might be interested in, we've got the webinars, but we've also got tips and tricks. So that is where you will find creating a stamp and also the linking QR codes to pieces of work. There is a video about that on our YouTube channel. Okay. So has anybody got any questions? I'm just going to turn my sound up. If anybody wants to pop any questions in the chat, I am going to look at the chat now just to check whether we've had any questions that Mary hasn't been able to answer. No, we've had no questions. So if you want to add a question into the chat, I will do my best to answer. If not, thank you ever so much for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it has been a very quick session, but hopefully you have learned something that you can use with your students in the next few weeks. You're very welcome. Thank you. And enjoy Banff. I hope school's open tomorrow, Miss McGregor. I bet you hope school's not open tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. That's really nice to have some good feedback. Okay. Right, well, we hope that you join us for another session. We have lots more training coming up that is available through our website. I'm going to close the session now. So enjoy your Monday
Nikki,
night.
Sorry.
Oh,
just have
hello.
one question there. What level do you use the Christmas animate task with?
What level? I mean, I have taught similar lessons to, I mean, even year one classes, which I think is your P2. Obviously, you would need a lot more support with those students and possibly maybe a TA taking them out with smaller groups. But certainly your year twos, which is P3, I would think you could probably teach that as a whole class activity, doing maybe the snowing animation, making the snow fall down. For things moving across the screen, you'd probably use that for year 3, which is your P4s and above. So hopefully that's answered your question. But yeah, I've done animations with reception kids somehow a long time ago, but that was definitely very small groups. Brilliant, thank you, Brenda. Brill. Okay. Right. Have a love. How brave. I know. I don't work with reception children anymore. Not if I can help it. Brilliant. Right, I'm going to close the meeting now. Have a lovely Monday evening, and we hope to see you all again soon. All right, good night.